Tonight, I want to continue our Medicine in Your Kitchen series by focusing on digestion and gut health, because this is one of those areas where things are that you already keep in your kitchen can be incredibly useful. When we talk about digestion, most people immediately think about things like heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, gas or bloating, but digestion is much bigger than that, right? It's the entire process of taking the food we eat, from chewing it, breaking it down into usable parts, absorbing the nutrients, moving everything through to the digestive tract, and interacting with its enormous community of bacteria and other organisms that live in the gut. And really, digestion does not start in the stomach. It starts way before food ever reaches the stomach. It starts with seeing and smelling the food, producing saliva, chewing, signaling the stomach and digestive organs that food is coming. Then we have stomach acid, bile from the gallbladder, digestive enzymes from the pancreas, intestinal movement, gut microbiome, all of that working together. And we also have the nervous system, which is heavily involved in the process, which is why stress can affect digestion so dramatically. A stressful day can change appetite, slow down digestion, speed it up, cause reflux, nausea, diarrhea, constipation, or that heavy feeling where food just seems to sit there. So when we support digestion, we're supporting a lot more than the stomach. One of the things I want to keep reinforcing in this series is that we don't always have to reach immediately for another supplement, right? So when I start talking about, oh, this is good for this, we don't need to go out and buy a supplement for that, right? Sometimes we just need to simply think, what can I add to my food? And a lot of these things are tasty and they're great additions to food. Traditionally, cultures have used culinary herbs and spices for digestion for thousands of years. And many of those combinations become part of the cuisine because they tasted good and because people noticed they felt better when they used them. So there's a reason that certain herbs get paired with things like beans or heavy meats, right? Rich foods or vegetables that tend to cause gas. People figured out some of this a long time ago, long before anyone understood digestive enzymes or gut microbiome. So let's look at a few things that may already be in your kitchen. Tonight, we're going to talk about ginger, fennel seed, cumin, peppermint, rosemary, and coriander seed. And when you get this PDF, you can take a look and see the different things that they're great for, right? So there's a flavor profile, a digestive superpower, and culinary pairings. We're going to talk more about these in the next slides, though. So the first one is ginger, and we talked briefly about ginger in our first class, but tonight I want to give it a little bit more attention because ginger is really one of those classic digestive herbs, and it's so effective. It's especially useful for that unsettled, sluggish, or nauseated stomach. Most people know about ginger for nausea, and that's probably because it's one of its best uses. But it can also help support digestive movement and generally make the stomach feel more comfortable. Fresh ginger is very easy to use. You can grate it into stir fries or soups or broths, vegetables or marinades. You can slice a few pieces and steep them in hot water for a simple tea. Powdered ginger works too, but fresh and dried ginger are a little different. They taste different. Fresh ginger has that bright, sharp, almost citrusy kind of heat, while dried ginger tends to feel warmer and stronger and a bit hotter to my taste. I like both. It just depends on what I'm making. So one simple thing to try is fresh ginger with lemon after a heavy meal. You don't have to make it complicated. A couple slices of ginger and some hot water is plenty. And then just add a little squeeze of lemon, and it's wonderful. The next one we want to talk about is peppermint. Peppermint is one that most people think of as a tea or as candy, right? But peppermint is also a traditional digestive herb. It can help relax the smooth muscles of the digestive tract, which is why it's often used for cramping and gas and that uncomfortable, tight feeling in the belly. A simple peppermint tea after a meal can be incredibly soothing. Fresh mint can also be added to cucumber salads, yogurt sauces, vegetables, or infused water. One small caution here: peppermint can sometimes make reflux worse in people who are already struggling with it because relaxing those muscles can also relax the valve between the stomach and the esophagus. So if it doesn't work for you, then just, don't use it. But this is a great example of learning your own body because something can be wonderful for one type of digestion problem and then less useful for another, or good for one person and less useful for another person. So now we're going to talk about the carminatives. These help to defeat gas and bloating. First one is fennel seed. A lot of people have seen fennel seed. Some people have probably tasted it without realizing what they're tasting, right? It's that slightly sweet, sort of licorice-like flavor that you often find in Italian sausage. Just that little seed in an Italian sausage. Fennel has traditionally been used for gas, bloating, and digestive discomfort, especially after meals. And this is one of those great examples of food and medicine overlapping. You can add fennel seed to ground meat, tomato sauce, soups, roasted vegetables or beans. And if you crush the seeds slightly before you use them, you release more of the aromatic oils. So you can also make a very simple fennel tea by lightly crushing a teaspoon or so of the seeds and steeping them in hot water. In some cultures, fennel seeds are actually chewed after meals. Part of that is for freshening the breath, but part of it is also digestive. And then we have cumin. It's another one that almost everybody has, but I don't think most people really think about it as a digestive herb. And some of us, really don't use it all that much. But cumin is heavily used in Mexican, Indian, Middle Eastern, and North African cooking. And it pairs beautifully with foods that can sometimes be harder to digest, especially beans and legumes. It's warm, earthy, slightly bitter, and bitterness is actually an interesting part of digestion because bitter flavors can help stimulate some of our digestive process. A lot of the American diet, the average American diet, doesn't have the bitter flavor, and this really impacts how digestible our food is. That bitter receptors in our digestive tract, in our tongue, in our taste buds, those bitter receptors help to get the digestion moving in the way that it should. You can use cumin in chili, taco meat, roasted vegetables, lentils, beans, soups, eggs, and spice blends. If you have whole cumin seeds, try lightly toasting them in a dry pan for a minute before you cook with them. The flavor changes completely and becomes a lot more aromatic. So now we have the heavy lifters, breaking down those really rich meals. Rosemary is the first one. I want to talk about rosemary because I think people underestimate it. It's usually treated like a flavoring for chicken or potatoes, but it's actually very aromatic and medicinal. It has traditionally been used to support digestion, circulation, mental clarity, and contains a number of antioxidant compounds. From a digestive perspective, rosemary pairs especially well with heavier foods. Use it with meat, roasted vegetables, soups, beans, or olive oil. You can chop fresh rosemary finely and add it to vegetables or use dried rosemary in marinades and spice blends. And if you've ever walked past a rosemary plant and rubbed the leaves between your fingers, you know how strong those volatile oils are. They're wonderful. That aroma is chemistry. Those aromatic compounds are part of what makes herbs like rosemary, mint, and fennel so useful. So something new to try, maybe not. You might have tried this before, but coriander seed. This is our challenge herb tonight. So I want to use coriander seed for this challenge. Most people know cilantro, but coriander seed comes from the exact same plant and tastes completely different. Cilantro is the leaf, coriander is the seed. Coriander seed has a warm, slightly citrus flavor. It's commonly used in Indian, Middle Eastern, and Latin cooking. Traditionally, it's been used to support digestion and reduce gas and bloating. You can use coriander seed with cumin, garlic, turmeric, ginger to build a really beautiful spice blend. It works well with vegetables, chicken, lentils, beans, soup, and roasted foods. If you buy whole coriander seeds, lightly crushing them or grinding them right before you use them gives them a much better flavor than buying something that's been sitting powdered in the cabinet for years. Um, and that goes with all herbs. If you can get them in their whole form and then grind them before you use them, the whole form retains the medicinal values for much, much longer than a powdered form of an herb. So also let's talk about the aging while we're talking about that, right? So herbs and spices, they age. They don't necessarily become dangerous when they get old, but they lose their flavor and their aromatic compounds and their medicinal value. So if you open a jar of herbs and you smell, barely anything, that jar may technically still say oregano, but basically everything really, really good in it has kind of left the building. Um, it's probably a good time that it's time to replace it, or a good sign that it's time to replace it. That aroma is chemistry, like I said before, right? When you rub a rosemary leaf between your fingers, the smell isn't just a pleasant scent, it is active plant chemistry. Aromatic compounds, volatile oils are what make these herbs medicinally useful. So every once in a while, think about the spice in the back of your cabinet. Open that up, take a whiff. You may really want to replace it, and understand that as they get older, the flavor is less, right? So you may have cayenne in the back of your cabinet that you've been using over time, little here and little there, right? You're getting down to the bottom, so you're going to buy a brand new thing of cayenne. Understand that that new one is probably going to be much stronger than your old one. So the first time you use that, you're going to get that pop more so than you would have with the old one that you've been using for the last 2 years. All right, so let's move on to the microbiome. I want to talk about this because we hear that phrase constantly now, right? Everybody's talking about the gut microbiome. Your digestive tract contains trillions of microorganisms, and many of them are incredibly helpful, and this is why everybody's talking about it. They help to break down certain foods, produce compounds our bodies use, they interact with the immune system, and even communicate with the nervous system. One of the best ways to support a diverse gut microbiome is simply to eat a diverse range of plants. Vegetables, herbs, spices, nuts, seeds, legumes, berries, other plant foods are all different. They all bring in different fibers and plant compounds to the table. So when we add herbs and spices to the meal, we aren't only adding flavor, we're adding more plant diversity. So instead of eating chicken and broccoli, right? We don't want to do that all the time. Maybe tonight it's chicken with garlic and rosemary and thyme and broccoli with lemon pepper and black pepper, right? We can kind of expand it out. It can be the same food, but as we add more herbs to it, we're introducing several more plants and several more plant compounds. And so that's the idea that I generally want you to begin playing with, right? What can I add to things? How we eat matters also. The rest and digest, right? I can give you every digestive herb in the world, but if you eat a large meal standing over the sink while you're answering your emails and arguing with somebody on the phone, your digestive system may still have something to say about that. Slow down enough to chew. Sit down, relax when you're eating. Actually taste your food. Give your nervous system a chance to realize that you're eating. Sorry. Taking a few short breaths before a meal can help shift the body towards the rest and digest side of the nervous system. So you sit down at a table, you take a few deep breaths, you smell the food, you look at the food, right? This is all signaling your body that we are about to consume food. And so let's get those digestive enzymes working. The smell, the look, You're signaling to your brain, "Ooh, here's this food," right? And that's why we use a lot of colorful food too, because that excites the brain and says, "Ooh, look at all these colors. Look at all this diversity." And it gets excited, and the smells come from that, and this all kicks in the digestive system. But relaxing and doing this in a relaxed manner and bringing your nervous system down is absolutely essential for good digestion. So if beans make you miserable every single time you eat them, adding cumin doesn't really mean you suddenly need to eat 3 bowls of beans either, right? Okay, these herbs are tools. They aren't magic erasers. We still listen to our body. Beans are great for us, but if they bother your digestion, you know, eat them a little at a time here and there. Listening to ourselves is key, listening to that body. So, an everyday digestive blend, if you want a little recipe for this, right? We can just put these together. 2 parts cumin, 2 parts coriander, 1 part ginger, 1 part fennel, and a little black pepper. That's a great digestive blend. Now, if you're asking me what are parts, is that teaspoons, is it tablespoons? I use parts, and we use parts in herbalism because it depends. Do we want to make, a little tiny 1/8 of a cup of this blend, or do we want to make a quart of this blend? So 1 part would be like 1 teaspoon. So then for 2 parts, you would use 2 teaspoons. For half a part, you would use half a teaspoon, right? Just keep your part the same all the way through the recipe. And in this one, you can add a little turmeric if you like. With the black pepper, it helps. The black pepper helps to get the turmeric into the system, but make it more bioavailable. And you can use that on roasted vegetables, chicken, lentils, beans, soup, whatever. You don't need a huge amount of this, but get a little crazy with it. We're looking for regular exposure and variety. That is the key to this. So we don't want to use, coriander every single day as the main thing in our meal because coriander is good for us. It is, but switch it up. Change things up a little bit. The variety, your body and your taste buds will appreciate the variety, but also your body in general will appreciate the variety of plant compounds that you are consuming. So this one meal challenge, right? Supporting digestion doesn't begin in the supplement aisle, it begins in your kitchen. And that's the thought I want you to go away with tonight, right? It doesn't have to be taken, you don't have to take supplements. You don't have to have 15 different things that you throw down your throat early in the morning with your coffee and then think you're done for the day, right? That is just not how the body naturally works. So you can begin by adding some ginger in your stir fry, or fennel in your soup, or cumin in your beans, rosemary on your vegetables, or peppermint tea after dinner. Peppermint tea, by the way, is a really great substitute for coffee if you're trying to cut down on your coffee consumption because peppermint is stimulating and it helps wake you up in the morning. You're smelling that mint and you're drinking the mint, and it's just really wonderful. It's a great way to start a morning. But over time, the little choices that you made, the little additions to your food, they add up. You're not going to start, throwing some turmeric in your food tonight and tomorrow all of a sudden you have no inflammation. That's not how it works. However, if you're doing that on a regular basis and you're adding things into your food that will help you in certain ways, then that can become eh, over time, your body gets a little healthier and a little healthier. And one day you'll look back and you'll say, hey, you know what? My back doesn't hurt anymore. Or, you know what? I'm completely regular now. I don't have that constipation issue or whatever your issues are, right? Sometimes as you support your body, you can start looking back and feeling the difference when you can notice the difference because you're feeling that change build up over time. So before the next class, which is, once a week we do this, I would love for you to choose one herb or spice that we talked about tonight that either you haven't used before or at least haven't used for a long time. And just find one simple way to bring it into a meal, right? You don't have to get all complicated. You don't have to, if you've never cooked a curry, you don't have to do the whole thing and do all that. You can just start adding and experimenting and, deciding, "Oh, hey, I like this. I don't like this. I like these 2 together. I never thought I would," right? Just try and experiment a little bit more, because the more comfortable we become using the plants in our food, then the less they feel like some, mysterious form of herbal medicine, and the more they become what they've always been, which is part of how humans nourish and support the body. People look at herbs and spices as either culinary or medicinal, but for the most part, we're not taught that they're both. So, excuse me. So, don't overcomplicate it. Just kind of experiment a little bit. Try out some new things. Share what you've tried on the discussion thread, because other people would probably be interested in that too.